Jean Harlow. She was Hollywood's first blonde bombshell. Her film career would last just 8 years, but in that time she would leave an indelible imprint on the world of motion pictures and on society. The public saw her romance such leading men as Spencer Tracy, Clark Gable, James Cagney, and Robert Taylor. Ironically, the off-screen life of Jean Harlow was filled with loneliness, isolation, and depression. She was to die just as her career was taking a turn for the better. Marilyn Monroe, another tragic blonde. Her career in Hollywood began almost a decade after Harlow's death, but her story is frighteningly similar to Jean Harlow's. In fact, Marilyn once stated in an early fan magazine interview that as a child she had grown up wanting to be just like Jean Harlow. The victim of a broken home and several failed marriages, Monroe's physical appearance was but a veneer, shielding outsiders from her inner feelings of inadequacy, insecurity, and, tragically, her suicidal tendencies. Marilyn Monroe and Jean Harlow set the standards by which all blonde movie hopefuls are compared. But our tragic blondes had more in common than just the color of their hair. Both were married and on their own at a very young age. Both were divorced a total of 3 times each. Both beauties began their film careers to, at best, mixed reviews. Neither was at first considered a great actress. But when it was discovered that these women could handle the delicate art of comedy, both of their careers soared to new heights of popularity. And tragically, both actresses died while at the peak of their careers. What brought tragic endings to the lives of these movie goddesses? Jean Harlow was born Harleen Carpenter on March 3, 1911, in Kansas City, Missouri. A relatively spoiled little girl, she moved with her family to Illinois when she was 6. Her father left home when she was 10, and Harleen followed at 16. She had eloped with a young businessman, Chuck McGrew. The couple settled in Los Angeles, where movie fan Harleen registered at several central casting offices. She had dreams of an acting career. Her diligence was rewarded when she finally got work as an extra in Moran of the Marines. That same year, she also found work at the Hal Roach Studios in Double Whoopee, a Laurel and Hardy short comedy. Jean's part, albeit brief, steals the comedy. As a society lady, she unknowingly is partially disrobed when doorman Stan Laurel steps on the train of her dress. As Jean enters the hotel lobby, patrons, bellhops, and the desk clerk do double takes at the sight of her parading through the establishment, revealing her slip and undergarments from the rear, as a befuddled Laurel and Hardy do their best to shield the lovely view. A featured role in Paramount's Saturday Night Kid in 1929 drew mediocre reviews, so Harlow returned to working in short subjects. Due to disagreements over her film career, she also divorced Chuck McGrew and changed her name to Jean Harlow, which was actually her mother's maiden name. Years later, young Norma Jean Baker would also divorce her first husband due to his objections concerning her career, and she too would change her name to Marilyn Monroe. 1929 was also the year that film producer Howard Hughes discovered the newly christened Jean Harlow. Hughes needed a replacement for Swedish actress Greta Nielsen for his epic airplane extravaganza, Hell's Angels. When production began, the film was to be a silent feature. The advent of sound, however, forced Hughes's hand, and Hell's Angels was now going to be a talkie, whether he liked it or not. With the transition to sound, problems arose immediately. Greta Nielsen's thick Swedish accent did not translate smoothly onto the primitive recording equipment. Her dialogue was almost impossible to understand. Hughes quickly signed All-American Jean Harlow to a contract, and Greta Nielsen's scenes were all reshot. With the release of the film, 19-year-old Jean Harlow was thrust into star status.
Jean Harlow.
Thank you. I would like to use this occasion to publicly thank Mr. Hughes for the opportunity he gave me.
The public fell in love with this brassy platinum blonde. To emulate Jean, thousands of American women began bleaching their hair. Drugstores couldn't keep peroxide on the shelves. They all wanted the Jean Harlow look. Howard Hughes, who held Jean's exclusive contract, recognized her potential and began loaning her out to other studios, for substantial fees, of course. Jean appeared in The Secret Six opposite Wallace Beery for MGM Studios. The Secret Six is significant in that it was the first time Jean worked in a film with the then relatively unknown Clark Gable. In The Secret Six and her next film, The Iron Man, Jean played characters who were motivated by money. When Lou Ayres, as Jean's prize-fighting husband in The Iron Man, loses an important bout, Jean packs her bags and leaves him. That particular portrayal as a cold-hearted gold digger set the pattern for Jean's early roles. In The Public Enemy, Jean becomes the object of James Cagney's affection, although Jean rebuffs his advances. As his interest in Jean grows, Cagney tires of his current mistress, Mae Clark, and in the film's most memorable scene, demonstrates his displeasure with Mae by pushing a grapefruit into her face. But before Cagney can get Jean, gangsters get him. The next notable Harlow film was Goldie with Spencer Tracy. Jean played a carnival high diver and a heartbreaking gold digger once again. Frank Capra directed Jean in Platinum Blonde. As the name Jean Harlow was synonymous with Platinum Blonde, anyone could guess who the focus of the picture was. Like several of her earlier co-stars, Robert Williams seemed to have a promising career looming before him. But he died shortly after playing the husband of snobbish socialite Jean in Platinum Blonde. In Jean's next picture, Three Wise Girls, her screen image began to move a slight step away from her gold digger portrayals. As a small-town girl who moves to the big city, she unknowingly becomes involved with a married man, played by Walter Byron. By the film's end, it's Jean who is left disillusioned and broken-hearted. Jean had worked for nearly every Hollywood studio: Hal Roach, Paramount Pictures, United Artists, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, Universal, Fox, Warner Brothers, and Columbia Pictures. Now, in 1932, she would return to Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer to star with Walter Huston and Wallace Ford in The Beast of the City. Jean would remain at MGM for the rest of her career. MGM was the Hollywood studio. Its pictures usually had the biggest production budgets, and its stable of stars were afforded every advantage. MGM's efficient publicity and advertising departments propelled their careers onward and upward. In The Beast of the City, Jean played a gangster's girlfriend who eagerly encouraged criminal activity. In the film's concluding moments, Jean and her boyfriend are gunned down by police, as justice had to always prevail, especially at Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. In the following months, Jean's image began to undergo a radical change. She was transformed from the rough-edged, flashy blonde into a more sophisticated and attainable young lady. The film Red-Headed Woman demonstrated Jean's flair for comedy. Her satirical characterization of an office employee who seduces her employer, played by Chester Morris, and convinces him to divorce his wife and marry her. The film received excellent reviews, many of which heralded Jean's now comedic and softer performance. Teamed again with Clark Gable, Jean played a prostitute running from the authorities in Red Dust.
Come on, let's have it. Who are you? Where'd you come from?
Don't rush me, brother.
Gable, Harlow, two of filmdom's all-time great stars in one of its outstanding motion pictures.
You talk too much, but you're a cute little trick at that. Why haven't you been around before?
Starring Clark Gable, Jean Harlow, Jean Raymond, Mary Astor.
Hey, what's the idea?
What?
You know we drink that water?
Stop! Gee, can't a girl take a bath in privacy without... Oh, good morning.
Red Dust, storm-lashed story of passions at fever heat in the steaming Malay jungle.
I don't know how it happened. I didn't do anything. He didn't have any reason to believe that I didn't hear any cries for help.
Why, the night before we left, it was an open book on both their faces. There was something up. He's been making a play for your wife ever since... Hey!
Betrayed and betrayer, alone, where the law of the prevails, and overall, the deadly menace of a tiger on the loose. Gable, Harlow, Raymond, Astor, in Red Dust.
21 years later, Gable would remake Red Dust as Mogambo. Ava Gardner would take Jean's role, and Grace Kelly appeared in Mary Astor's place. Jean Harlow, America's first full-fledged sex symbol, was on a roll. Her private life, on the other hand, was far from idyllic. She was lonely and unhappy. Her knight in shining armor would be Paul Byrne. Byrne was a trusted employee and confidant of MGM executive Irving Thalberg. He and Jean met at MGM. Jean found it refreshing that Paul Byrne seemed more attracted to her intellectually than physically. He became more of a father figure to Jean than anything else. In fact, Byrne's attitude toward Jean was perhaps more fatherly than many knew, for he was impotent. However, this information was not known to Jean when the two were married in July of 1932, while Red Dust was still in production. After 2 months of an unconsummated marriage, their short life as man and wife came to a pathetic halt when Byrne committed suicide. While the publicity surrounding this unfortunate event would normally be rather negative for a young star, Jean, surprisingly, never faltered at the box office. She threw herself back into work following her personal tragedy. She seldom would comment on Byrne. The unfortunate episode would be just another in a long series of emotional letdowns for the unhappy woman. Ironically, Jean's next film was titled Hold Your Man. Teamed once again with Clark Gable, the film begins as a wisecracking farce, but makes the transition to heavy drama as a pregnant Jean is wrongly jailed. In a return to a full-fledged screwball comedy, Jean parodied herself in Bombshell. Playing a spoiled film star who has grown tired of her sex goddess image, largely invented by the studio's publicity mill, Jean is pursued by Pat O'Brien, Lee Tracy, and Franchot Tone. With comic foil Ted Healy, the end result was an audience-pleasing, sophisticated sex comedy. Bombshell was the 4th consecutive film photographed by MGM's head cameraman, Harold Rossin. Up to this time, he had played an important role in Jean's professional life. Jean always felt confident that Rossin would show her off to her best advantage. Like Paul Byrne before him, Rossin became another father figure to Jean. She was 16 years younger than Rossin. Jean's friends and co-workers were both surprised and shocked when she and Rossin eloped while on location shooting Bombshell. In a newspaper interview, she described Rossin as the ideal husband, golf partner, lover, and cameraman. Hollywood insiders were skeptical. So were the powers that be at Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. The studio assigned another director of photography to Jean's next film. The studio touted an all-star cast for its production of Dinner at 8, a title which still appears on critics' lists of favorite films. Director George Cukor teamed with David O. Selznick and utilized MGM's top stars to great advantage. Simply stated, Dinner at 8 was a triumph for Jean Harlow, for her co-stars, and for Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer Studios.
fond of you, Oliver.
I was very much in love with you, Carlotta. You were the most entrancing creature in the world.
I've got 8 people. 8 people listen to dinner. Who can I get? And you come to me with your idiotic little, I'm the one who ought to be in bed.
Oh, darling, it's so awful not to be with you every minute.
All right. If you think I've been lying to you all the time, you're going to get the truth now.
It's the first chance I ever got with decent society people to see my name in the paper with somebody that ain't mixed in your dirty politics. And if I miss it, you're gonna pay for it with everything you got. Oh, Wayne, darling.
I want to sit next to Oliver. Oliver, where's Oliver?
By the time Dinner at 8 was released, the Harlow-Rossin marriage was showing signs of strain. Jean confided to close friends that her new husband was distant toward her, and that he ignored her whenever their paths crossed at the studio. During the shooting of her next film, The Girl from Missouri, her marriage continued to falter. On-screen, Jean was playing a chorus girl who wanted to marry a millionaire. Off-screen, Jean was seeking to end her married life. At the conclusion of The Girl from Missouri, Jean marries her co-star, Franchot Tone. In real life, she divorced Harold Rossin. With her third failed marriage behind her, Jean buried herself in her work once again. Her latest assignment was a melodrama, Reckless. The cast included Rosalind Russell, William Powell, and Franchot Tone. Powell was one of the studio's top stars, usually cast as a suave, sophisticated, well-dressed ladies' man. Powell had appeared as Detective Philo Vance and had recently completed his first outing as Detective Nick Charles in The Thin Man. Powell had formerly been married to Carol Lombard. Now, Carol Lombard had become romantically linked to Jean Harlow's frequent leading man, Clark Gable. Gable and Lombard would finally marry 4 years later. During the filming of Reckless in 1935, Jean would fall in love with Powell.
Gee!
Going my way?
Well, am I?
When I'm in love, I'm reckless.
Simply swell. Baby, you were never better.
Why does she always call me a gorilla? Ain't I a man like everybody else?
No.
Huh?
Oh, Mona? Here's a dish of sherbet that's been looking for you. Oh, am I intruding?
No, it was I that did the intruding.
Ned, for the first time in my life, I'm scared.
Now, baby, take it easy.
Get out and stay out!
Reckless ended with Powell playing Jean's manager, making plans to marry Jean. He would soon be making similar plans in real life. Jean and William Powell became one of Hollywood's most talked about and gossiped about couples. It appeared that if William Powell would become Jean's fourth husband, that her odds of finding happiness were greatly enhanced. Both parties this time were stars of equal caliber. Both were wealthy, both shared the same interests, and most importantly, both were ready for a lifelong commitment to one another. The glow Jean felt in her personal life was reflected in her work.
Each time in love I'm more reckless. I waste no weeping on lost romances. I pay my losses and take new chances. I'm reckless, don't want to bite. Keep seeking my fool's paradise. I waste no weeping, I just keep hoping for one who's hoping for me.
Having completed her duties on Reckless, she was paired once again with Clark Gable and Wallace Beery in China Seas.
Indochina, Malay, Singapore. Fabled cities, the meeting place of souls weary of the humdrum drabness of civilization, thirsting for the siren call of danger, the bizarre, the different. Where carmine lips entice and laughing eyes beckon. Here was a notorious, yet picturesque, dangerous, yet fascinating trio. There was the master of the most adventurous ship on the China Seas, Skipper Gaskell. And the lady, known as China Doll, the mystery man, whom everyone knew, yet no one knew.
You're with me from now on, or I'm going to break that pretty little neck of yours just like it was a...
But you taught me I didn't even know myself. When a woman can love a man right down to a fingernail, she can hate him the same way.
Get out of here.
Oh, I got a mighty good reason for being here.
You always got a good reason for anything you do. In fact, I don't know anybody that can think up any more remarkable reasons than you can on short notice.
Listen to me, I took an awful chance coming here. I might have got heaved overboard.
Well, don't run any more risk by staying.
Following her performance as Clark Gable's discarded mistress in China Seas, Jean immediately plunged into Riff Raff. Paired for the second time in her career with Spencer Tracy, Jean appeared as a cannery worker who falls in love with rugged fisherman Tracy.
Sweat. Pipe down, Dutch. This ain't the place. Let me alone. I got a right to talk. Tell him where to head in, Dutch. You're heading for trouble. You mean he's heading for trouble? You got an earful of what they said, didn't you?
Everybody will be sober in the morning and they spit in your eye.
Is that so?
Yeah.
Look out, Dutch, he's going nice.
Oh, I knew he wouldn't come. Of all the big welchers, tall-headed lowlifer. Oh, Dutch. Take what you need from my closet and I'll watch out for the cops.
Oh, I knew you'd come, Dutch.
Hello, Squirt.
Hello, Squirt.
You know, I know a lot of dames that would rather have a guy's arms around them, keeping them warm. Sure. Anybody can buy a dame a fur piece. How's that?
How's it to you?
Not bad.
I gotta be going.
You ain't going no place. That stink-up is driving me screwy. Want to slip me a little kiss?
Make you his private stenographer, and you work a nice clean office.
Well, you've tried everything. Now it's night school and a job in a nice clean office. No, thanks, Nick. I'll stick to the fishes. They ain't got hands.
Have a good time, Ball. Oh, I made out. Oh. Take a squint at that.
What is it, an advertisement? No, I was elected Miss Hook and Ladder Company number 7, that's all.
Up for yourself, a genuine him spotted Havana to perfect.
Oh, thank you very much.
Have a drink?
Sure.
Come on.
Thank you very much.
You're a pretty smart lawyer, huh?
Riff Raff was released on January 3rd, 1936. And by the end of the year, 4 films starring Jean would grace theater screens. She was now one of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer's top stars. Jean's hectic schedule included countless interviews with writers of fan magazine articles, attending studio screenings, parties, and premieres. But even with this feverish schedule, Jean's romance with Powell continued. Soon, the pair announced their unofficial engagement. The future was looking very bright for the couple. A 5th on-screen pairing with Clark Gable translated into Wife versus Secretary. Jean's co-star in this piece was Myrna Loy, who was cast opposite William Powell. And as Jean's romance continued to flourish, the combination of players made for one happy cast. The mood carried over effectively onto the screen, and Wife versus Secretary was warmly received by Jean's fans. Jean was the secretary referred to in the title, and Myrna Loy the wife. Young James Stewart further advanced his career by appearing as Jean's boyfriend in the comedy. Jean was next cast opposite Cary Grant for the first time, and Franchot Tone for the 5th time, in the melodrama Susie. Set in London at the outset of World War I, Jean plays cinematic wife to both co-stars. Jean Harlow fans seem to favor her work in lighter, frothy romantic comedies. Fueled by stories of the Jean Harlow-William Powell romance, Jean's followers eagerly embraced her next picture, Libeled Lady. Along with Powell, the brash comedy starred Myrna Loy and Spencer Tracy.
I tell you, I can't go now. The paper's in a jam. We're facing a libel suit.
Well, you're facing a breach of promise suit. If you don't want to marry me, just say so.
Glad you're getting yourself all upset, darling. Over here, a little drinky, maybe.
No, not today I don't. Today I get married. Will you marry me?
Well, Connie,
Will you, Bill?
Will I? Is there a preacher in the house? Gladys, do you want me to kill myself?
Did you change your insurance?
Would I ask you to do this thing for me if I didn't consider you practically as my wife?
Well, would you ask your wife to hook up with that ape?
The ape objects.
Women can't fool women about men. You don't know Bill.
Oh, no?
Oh, I know. You've got him now. In name, anyway. But I have his love.
They're married, all right.
Oh, but that's arson.
You mean it's bigamy? Well, what a story. Constance Allenbury marries bigamist.
If you publish that, you'll have another libel suit on your hands. I'm not a bigamist.
You married me, didn't you?
Well,
quite as few Gladys if she were the last female on Earth. Female, huh? That's done. You can't stand there and insult Gladys. You know, you've had this coming for a long time. Yes, and I've been looking forward. We'll settle it right now.
With interest.
Yeah.
As 1936 came to a close, Jean Harlow was at the zenith of her career. The new year held the promise of more professional triumphs, and personally, she was on the brink of another marriage to a mate who complemented her perfectly. While working on the pleasant comedy Personal Property opposite Robert Taylor, Jean began to experience what seemed to be minor medical problems. She experienced occasional pain in her stomach and had bouts of nausea. Long days at the studio did not serve to better the situation. The production began on January 4th, 1937, and was completed by January 21st. The rigorous schedule did not permit Jean to follow her doctor's prescribed diet, nor her daily exercise regimen. The studio sent Jean and Personal Property co-star Robert Taylor on a cross-country train trip to promote the film. Her health further deteriorated. Upon her return to California, she consigned herself to a period of rest and convalescence. Jean's next film was Saratoga. The 30-day shooting of the picture quickly began to slide behind schedule. On Saturday, May 29th, Jean collapsed while working overtime on a scene with Clark Gable. She was sent home, and Jean's mother was to attend to her sick daughter. Jean's mother zealously followed the Christian Science religious teachings, which prescribed prayer and not medicines. Jean's illnesses and remedies applied by doctors were an affront to her religious beliefs. An acute infection developed in her gallbladder, which caused further damage to her intestines, particularly her kidneys. Many of Jean's biographers attribute her weakened kidneys to a severe beating administered to her by her late husband, Paul Byrne. On their wedding night, a sexually frustrated Byrne allegedly attacked Jean with a cane across the back and over her kidneys, which caused them to deteriorate. After several urgent appeals to Jean's mother, the now dying woman was removed to Good Samaritan Hospital in Los Angeles. A rescue team of the Los Angeles Fire Department was summoned in an effort to save her. William Powell was at Jean's bedside when death came at 11:37 a.m. on June 7, 1937. The Platinum Blonde was only 26 years old. Jean Harlow would lie in a private crypt purchased for her by William Powell. Powell's career would continue, and he retained his star status until his death in 1984. At MGM, future projects intended for Jean were retooled. She was scheduled to appear with Robert Taylor and Spencer Tracy in Tell It to the Marines. In a plan to loan her to 20th Century Fox, Jean would have starred opposite Tyrone Power in Old Chicago. And as far as Saratoga, Jean's unfinished final film, MGM yielded to public demand to see the film. Using a camera double, the film was completed. But while the studio could replace Jean with a stand-in, nobody could match her warmth, her good humor, or her sparkle. Hollywood believed it would never see her kind again. But just over a decade would pass when a new star would shine on Hollywood's horizon, reinstating the glow that had been lost with the passing of Jean Harlow. 11-year-old Marilyn Monroe was still named Norma Jean Mortensen when Jean Harlow died. Born on June 1st, 1926, Marilyn's mother was unmarried at the time of her birth. Her family had a history of mental illness and suicide. Marilyn's mother was institutionalized throughout most of her childhood, so Marilyn spent her youth moving from foster home to foster home, sometimes encountering both physical and emotional abuse. When she was 16, the same age as Jean Harlow, Marilyn also ran away and married. Her husband was an airplane worker, Jim Doherty. To Marilyn, marriage represented an escape from her neglected childhood. But marriage didn't hold the key to happiness for young Marilyn. She attempted suicide just a year after her wedding. The relationship suffered another blow when James Doherty joined the Merchant Marines, leaving his young bride behind. It was by mere chance that Marilyn's life changed direction. While employed at a wartime aircraft plant, an Army publicity man asked Marilyn to pose for a pinup photo for Yank magazine. In need of cash, she agreed. As Marilyn found this source of income a welcome relief to her financial woes, she began to actively solicit modeling work. Several of her early photos began to appear on the covers of morale-boosting World War II magazines. Such public exposure did not go unnoticed by her husband, who disapproved. As long-distance arguments over her modeling work continued, Marilyn sought relief from the conflict by filing for divorce in 1946. Marilyn's magazine covers caught the attention of a talent scout at 20th Century Fox Studios, and a screen test was arranged.
And what did you come here for?
To tell you can't stay here. If those gorillas find you, what happens to them? Nothing. They're just going to leave them alone. What's the matter with you, Benny? You can't take such a chance.
You dumb broad. You stupid little...
What's the matter?
They followed you here, or did you bring them with you? I ought to...
Go ahead. It won't be the first time I've been worked over today. I'm getting used to it.
Ironically, Richard Conte, who appears here with Marilyn, is buried within sight of Marilyn's tomb at Westwood Cemetery. Marilyn was given a one-year contract at 20th Century Fox. Her first film appearance was in Scudda-Hoo, Scudda-Hay. She appeared in a brief scene as a passenger in a rowboat. The scene was edited out of the film. She did appear on screen in the part of a waitress in The Dangerous Years. Her contract was dropped at the end of the year. Studio executives saw no potential from the young girl. Columbia Studios was Marilyn's next employer. As one of 10 women featured, she appeared in Ladies of the Chorus. But Columbia also allowed Marilyn's contract to lapse. Out of work and without a means of income, Marilyn took whatever modeling work she could get. It was during this period that Marilyn posed for the now famous nude calendar. Hollywood photographer Tom Kelly paid Marilyn $50 to pose horizontally on a sheet of red velvet. The photo, which was used to illustrate a calendar called Golden Dreams, ultimately sold over 2 million copies. Finally, a film assignment materialized, albeit just a low-budget commercial. Marilyn caught the eye of the male audience.
This is the first car I ever owned. I call her Cynthia. She's going to have the best care a car ever had. Put Royal Triton in Cynthia's little tummy.
Right, lady.
Cynthia will just love that Royal Triton.
While visiting Palm Springs in 1949, Marilyn met the powerful William Morris theatrical agent Johnny Hyde. Hyde, although many years her senior, fell in love with the beauty and began to shape her career. Hyde had first seen Marilyn in the final Marx Brothers film Love Happy. Her bit part dealt with her complaints to Groucho Marx that men keep following me. Johnny Hyde saw the potential in Marilyn, which Fox and Columbia Studios had overlooked. In 1950, Marilyn went to work on her fourth film, A Ticket to Tomahawk. Although her role was a minor one, she did grace a song and dance number with the film star, Dan Daly. The important parts Marilyn's new agent boyfriend and mentor Johnny Hyde was seeking for Marilyn were finally realized. Hyde succeeded in having Marilyn cast in John Huston's film The Asphalt Jungle. The role proved to be a breakthrough for Marilyn, and the public began to take notice of her. The crime drama cast Marilyn as the mistress of the much older Louis Calhern, who introduces the seductive blonde to everyone in the picture as his niece. In 1950, the revelation that the young girl was Calhern's mistress was not permissible. Johnny Hyde next obtained a role for Marilyn in All About Eve. The picture was a triumph for Bette Davis. Davis's screen career was lagging, and her portrayal of a once great actress whose career was on the decline became a comeback film for her. In All About Eve, Marilyn again appeared with an older man, George Sanders. This time, she was referred to as Sanders' protege, although once again, it was clearly evident that she was Sanders' mistress. With 2 convincing performances behind her, Johnny Hyde was now able to arrange a longer-term contract with 20th Century Fox Studios. This was to be his last effort on Marilyn's behalf. He died in December of 1950. Like Jean Harlow, Marilyn was typecast to some extent. In her next film, she continued to play seductive blondes filled with bad intent. In The Fireball, she's a woman interested in Mickey Rooney, but only because he's a celebrated roller skating champ. On a studio loan-out to Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, Marilyn appears in a small part as Dick Powell's nightclub date in Right Cross. She received no screen credit whatsoever in the film. While on loan to MGM, she also played secretary to Jeffrey Lynn in Hometown Story. Essentially, she was window dressing in the film, dressed in a tight-fitting sweater throughout the movie. Returning to 20th Century Fox, Marilyn continued to be cast as the sexy blonde. In As Young as You Feel, she again portrayed a secretary in a role incidental to the film's plot. Marilyn's film roles were expanded, concurrent with the public's growing interest in her. But while Marilyn was being given more on-screen time, the studio kept Marilyn confined to films of a lesser stature. In Love Nest, she was an ex-Army whack and the love interest of Jack Parr. However, her romance in the film was but merely one of several subplots. Let's Make It Legal, similarly, cast her in a minor role, as a beautiful blonde who uses her physical attributes to advance herself. A publicity blitz, which started to gain momentum in 1952, would never slow. Scandal variety stories exposed details of her nude photo sessions, as well as reports of her mother's confinement in mental institutions. Taking note of the surge of publicity, Marilyn was cast in her most important role in Clash by Night. She held her own alongside seasoned stars Barbara Stanwyck and Robert Ryan. We're Not Married commingled Marilyn in a multi-plot comedy as one of several women who learn they are not legally married. Finally, with the release of Don't Bother to Knock, Marilyn was given star billing opposite Richard Widmark. Marilyn was cast as a psychotic babysitter. The Howard Hawks film Monkey Business, a madcap comedy starring Cary Grant and Ginger Rogers, signaled the end of Marilyn's supporting roles. During the making of the film, she was introduced to a celebrity visiting the movie set, baseball star Joe DiMaggio. Following a cameo walk-on in O. Henry's Full House, Marilyn found herself a full-fledged star as she headlined Niagara. The suspenseful thriller saw Marilyn as an adulterous wife of Joseph Cotton. The film version of the hit Broadway musical comedy Gentlemen Prefer Blondes was a property in which most important actresses in Hollywood wanted to participate. The coveted role of Lorelei Lee went to Marilyn. Appearing opposite Jane Russell, the film grossed millions for the studio. Marilyn's salary totaled $18,000. It was during this Howard Hawks production that Marilyn began her habit of arriving late to the set. Following the film's release, Marilyn and Jane Russell joined the gallery of stars who implanted their hand and footprints in cement at the famous Grauman's Chinese Theater. Marilyn replaced Betty Grable as the top film goddess at 20th Century Fox in How to Marry a Millionaire. Betty Grable's career had been waning, and Marilyn's rising.
Just watch the fur fly as the most talked about girls in Hollywood go out loaded for big game. Monroe, Grable, and Bacall, adding their own wonderful dimensions to the eye-filling dimensions of CinemaScope, letting you in on the grand and glorious adventures of three fascinating females who pooled their beauty in the greatest plot against mankind since Helen of Troy, Marie Antoinette, and Venus de Milo.
New York, you busy, busy, razzle-dazzle, scandalous place.
William Powell, the film's male lead, found Marilyn quite compelling, but somewhat unsettling to work beside. He could not help but draw comparisons to his lost love, Jean Harlow. Possibly due to the novelty of the CinemaScope film process, which presented a film twice as wide as it is high, Marilyn was rushed into an outdoor adventure film, The River of No Return. Marilyn resented being cajoled into appearing in the picture. Feeling the sting of River of No Return, she flatly refused to appear in a film titled Girl in the Pink Tights. The studio responded by placing her on suspension. And Marilyn countered this move by marrying Joe DiMaggio on January 14, 1954. With the eyes of the world focused upon the honeymooners, they vacationed in Korea, where they were overwhelmed by the size of adoring crowds. Marilyn took time off from her honeymoon to entertain the American troops. With the favorable publicity Marilyn received in the media, from both her marriage to sports hero DiMaggio and from her goodwill performances in Korea, Fox Studios dropped her suspension and began yielding to Marilyn's requests.
And we all lose our charms in the end. Where or can they be brought? Don't lose bad day. Diamonds are a girl's best friend.
Another tune-filled CinemaScope musical was next for Marilyn. There's No Business Like Show Business. Marilyn didn't care for the script or the picture, but the studio agreed to give her the lead in the film version of the smash Broadway hit The 7-Year Itch if she appeared in There's No Business Like Show Business. As the upstairs neighbor of Tom Ewell in The 7-Year Itch, Marilyn threatens the man's fidelity, but even more threatened was the stability of Marilyn's real-life marriage. Joe DiMaggio resented the furor created when his wife appeared in the famous 7-Year Itch scene, where her dress is blown up by air rushing through a sidewalk grating. Marilyn's attorney, Jerry Geisler, announced her divorce in late 1954.
Miss Monroe will have nothing to say this morning. All I can say as her attorney is that this is what we would say with the conflict of careers.
Following her divorce, Marilyn placed herself into a self-imposed exile in New York. She spent several months studying her craft before returning to Hollywood to appear in Bus Stop.
I would rather say that I have director approval, and that is true. This you think is important? Yes, it is. Very important to me. You're wearing a high-neck dress now. The last time I saw you wear it. Is this a new Marilyn, a new style? No, I'm the same person, but it's a different suit.
The film version of William Inge's play Bus Stop is quite possibly Marilyn's finest film performance. As a saloon singer with higher aspirations, she falls in love with a simple cowboy played by Don Murray. Following Bus Stop, Marilyn formed her own production company to produce feature films and announced her intentions to wed playwright Arthur Miller. While in New York, she had secretly dated the then-married Miller.
Miss Monroe, could you tell us what kind of a wedding you're going to have?
Very quiet, I hope.
Do you feel certain at this time that you will be able to get away to go to England?
I feel certain I'm going to try awfully hard. In the event that you are not able to go, will Miss Monroe still go? Oh, sure. She's got to go. She's got a contract to go. Well, that means you may not have a honeymoon together then. I think we will.
I hope so.
Very soon after their marriage, the couple flew to England to begin work on The Prince and the Showgirl, the prince being Sir Laurence Olivier, and of course, Marilyn was the dancer. The plot basically concerned their two different worlds romance. By the time the production ended, Olivier and Marilyn were no longer on speaking terms. One of Marilyn's more pleasant memories of the trip to Europe was being presented to the Queen. Upon returning to Hollywood, Marilyn had been offered the unique opportunity to portray her childhood idol, Jean Harlow, in a film biography. While Marilyn was eager to approach the role, Arthur Miller persuaded her to turn down the opportunity. Marilyn did play a blonde of Jean Harlow's era, however, in Some Like It Hot. Although the film was beset with production problems, Some Like It Hot remains one of the greatest comedies of all time.
Carefree mind all the time, never blue. Always going, don't know where. Always showing, I don't care. Don't love nobody. It's not worthwhile. All alone. Running wild.
Following her triumph in Some Like It Hot, Marilyn appeared in her least successful film, Let's Make Love. Marilyn's third marriage was also in trouble. Arthur Miller was growing cold toward Marilyn. To additionally signal the end of their relationship, Marilyn engaged in a quick but openly publicized affair with her Let's Make Love co-star, Eve Montan. On July 18, 1960, Marilyn Monroe began work on her last completed film, The Misfits. The film would also be her co-star's final film. Clark Gable would die 2.5 months before the movie was released. Pressures during the shooting of the film were intense. Tensions between Marilyn and Arthur Miller were equally steamy. As pressure mounted, Marilyn suffered a breakdown and returned to a hospital in Los Angeles, where she remained for 2 weeks. Ultimately, the film ran 40 days over schedule. Clark Gable died 12 days after the film's completion. Gable's widow accused Marilyn of creating such stress for the man as to have brought about his heart failure. Prior to the film's release on January 31st, 1961, Marilyn's marriage to Arthur Miller ended in divorce. To compound her personal problems, Marilyn began to turn more frequently than ever to alcohol and prescribed drugs. Marilyn committed herself to a psychiatric clinic in New York in an effort to rid herself of her chemical dependencies. Upon her release from the hospital, she spent time recuperating back in California.
I feel wonderful.
During this period of her life, she became acquainted with both President John F. Kennedy and Attorney General Robert Kennedy. Numerous literary sources have alleged that Marilyn had an affair with the president. As the often repeated story goes, Robert Kennedy became involved with Marilyn at the request of President Kennedy, who felt their relationship was drawing attention. In April of 1962, Marilyn was back before the cameras at 20th Century Fox, working on a lighthearted comedy, Something's Got to Give. As in the past, Marilyn began causing expensive production delays on the film. Infuriated executives at 20th Century Fox placed her on suspension. On May 19, 1962, Marilyn appeared at a Madison Square Garden birthday party held to honor President Kennedy. This added more gossip to the rumor mills.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mr. President. Happy birthday to you.
She returned to Fox and continued to upset the studio's executives in charge by her constant tardiness. On June 8, 1962, she was fired and the film was shelved. Her last day of work took place on her 36th birthday, June 1st, 1962. Marilyn adjourned to her Brentwood home to contemplate a threatened Fox lawsuit, to continue to abuse her body with prescribed pills, and to deal with the end of her alleged romance with Robert Kennedy. On the morning of August 5th, 1962, the world awoke to the news that Marilyn Monroe had died in the early morning hours in the bedroom of her Brentwood home, an apparent victim of an accidental drug overdose. And as her passing was mourned, Marilyn's predecessor to the mantle Queen of Hollywood, Jean Harlow, was recalled. Both women lived lives of dazzling highs and devastating lows, and both experienced extreme levels of joy and sorrow which most mortals would never approach. Marilyn Monroe, Jean Harlow. The legacies of two tragic blondes.